This year, we started with 2 units, as we do every year, but as we started to go on over the course of the year, we realized that we weren't going to finish on time, so we started a 3rd unit.
We've always had dragon and wolf units. This year we added a White Walker unit. It was hard enough trying to keep track of things going on in 2 different places at once, but in 3 different places at once it becomes almost impossible. December 7th, all 3 units were shooting at the Paint Hall in Belfast, which is our home base. That's where we started everything with the pilot.
When we have 3 full units going all within the same 2-building complex, that's a real challenge for everybody involved.
We've never had 3 units shooting there concurrently. We try not to have even 2 units shooting there, but just for whatever circumstances, it was impossible to avoid.
Every department and every crew member rose to the challenge.
My name is Alison Werty and I'm the second assistant director on Dragon Unit. Today we're at the Paint Hall. It's going to be a really interesting day because we've got 3 units filming here, so we're going to be tripping over each other quite shortly.
My name's Paul Morris and I'm the second AD on episodes 9 and 10. Our prime function on a daily basis is to get the artists, the extras, everything that goes in front of camera basically ready in time for the unit call. Today it's an 8 o'clock unit call, and because there's a very large prosthetic, it involved starting makeup at 3 o'clock in the morning, or 3:30 actually, but who's counting?
How are you? Okay.
We have a big prosthetic going on the mountain, which is why we're all here at crazy o'clock.
How are you feeling? Did you get some sleep?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
What a big day.
I'll get a bowl of hot water. We'll just take this down very slightly. Just around here. That's fantastic.
Morning, Amelia.
Morning!
See you later.
Bye!
Well, we were in this morning at 5:15, and the first person in the chair was Amelia.
Yeah, last year, freshman.
She came in at 5:30, 5:45. So we had to prep and get her stuff ready for her, and then the rest of the team came in after that.
Oh, Kevin, hey, lovey, how are you? Oh, well, welcome back. Yeah, you too, babe.
Hey, love, how are you?
Good, very good.
Good. Nice to see you.
This morning I'm on Dragon Unit and I was in at 6 to prep Hannah, who although she wears a wimple, we still prep her hair for underneath.
We've had Amelia, Grey Worm, Cersei, and Unella. We've had a full house today.
It was nice that this morning we were all able to work off one bus, and that's rare. So that was quite fun.
For me, having all the ADs for each unit here is a nightmare because there's too many questions. Everyone's standing outside and you'll go to answer a question and you're forgetting who's on what unit and they're throwing everything left, right and centre at you out there. So I'm just going to stay in here, I think.
Wolf unit's open. Wolf unit open.
Y tus trailers. Visita
My
mi
name's
canal.
Naomi Liston and I'm the locations manager.
I got in at 5 o'clock, and basically my role is to have an overview of all the units in all the locations, because we go to the most beautiful places in Northern Ireland. A lot of these beautiful places tend to be mountains or side of bays, places which are really difficult to get to. But it's good fun and, you know, it's a good challenge.
I suppose the fact that we've got 3 units in the actual paint hall today is quite a challenge. There's a lot of beeping from forklifts and stuff that we have to try and control, but thankfully we work very closely with the AD department and we help each other out in controlling the noise to keep Ronan, the sound guy, happy. It's not easy. It is very cold in the paint hall because there's no real insulation. So we're really first in to a location, make sure it's heated before the rest of the crew get in. There's a lot of manual labour involved, shall we say, but it's cheaper than the gym.
How are you? Good.
How are you? Good to see you. Yeah, good, thank you. Good.
My name's Mark Mylord. I joined the series last year for season 5, where I directed episodes 3 and 4, and they obviously didn't hate them too much because they invited me back. My day starts this morning with a 7:30 rehearsal. I tend to get in about half an hour before that. Came in, grabbed a cup of coffee, walked the set, just walk it through, get my thoughts together. I sit there, I look through my script. Sometimes everything that's planned goes out the window. This morning when I sat down and looked around the set, I did change one bit of blocking being how the actors move through the set.
Slight adjustment to the staging in the script at the beginning because, of course, we took Peter and Natalie out to that lovely balcony there in Peninsula.
Then we're ready, the actors come on and work with me on the set for about half an hour before the rest of the crew come on.
He creeps his spear, he hurriedly steps back and bows, the rest of the guys bow, and in comes Amelia.
We show it to them, we put down the marks, we talk about how we're going to shoot it and pretty much lay out the day's work.
Jacob, could I ask you to be here, please, Nate?
The process takes patience and really a lot of common sense just to go shot by shot and focus on that, but always looking ahead, particularly on a day like today when there's such a time crunch.
All right, rehearsing again, guys. Here we go. Run the line.
Feels his face, so that's not going to happen while he's standing here.
This is Dragon Unit filming a scene in a dungeon with Unella and Cersei and the mountain. This is from episode 10.
She's lying here.
Cersei comes in here.
This was Pike, and we changed a few things around and created a dungeon in the cellar of King's Landing. We reuse a lot of sets a lot of times, and this was a quick do-over.
With this cell here, we have lights already around it, so we'll just have to pre-light, get them set, tweak them a wee bit, have a look, see how Fabian feels about it, and then go from there.
It's not making it feel like a spotlight.
During the day, he'll come over just giving us pointers and tips of what he wants. And then once we get the camera and see the shot, then we can finish off tweaking.
See what visual effects and stunts are doing on this set. This used to be the set, and we tore it all down. White Walker unit. New, but it's fantastic.
We are in a huge space filled with green screens. It's probably the second biggest green screen I've seen on this job.
We are on cell 1, 2, 3, 4 at the Paint Hall in Belfast, and we are shooting elements of the sept blowing up.
We're running some stunts which are taking place at the time the sept is exploded with tons of wildfire.
We did the fire effects last week, and this is literally citizens of King Landing being kind of blown off in different directions.
This is not new ground for us. So basically the process of putting the mats out is about an hour, and then we start off doing a bag test. So we have a canvas bag which weighs the same average weight as a performer. So then we test the rig with the bag so that if there is any issue with the rig, it's the canvas bag that takes the fall.
What we're shooting today is probably half a second of each person, and they'll all be comped in together, so you'll have half a second of people taking off and then their bodies falling apart, courtesy of visual effects.
Do a full rehearsal with wind and everything.
All right, well, this is Armory that we're coming into. Hiding in the back. This is how we kill people.
Daggers? Yeah, Sons of the Harpy.
Ah, okay. And then what is the half dagger for there?
That's for when, you know, you'll do a cut where they're going to stab, and then the next cut is the dagger is in, bit of blood. It's probably one of the more impressive workshops because all the stock is always here. It is an armory. You know, if there's a zombie invasion, you do well to come in here and gear yourself up.
I work on all the rubber versions and plastic versions of all the different weapons. For example, this would be one of the metal swords that we make with a little dagger here for cold hands.
My name's Aisling. It's my first job out of college, so I'm delighted to be here. I helped make the Bolton shields. There was 100 of them to be made and made them in 2 weeks. It was pretty crazy, but a lot of fun.
This is the throwing arm of the catapult. You have to fix the arm. There's a little bit of damage on it during the week. So once we get the arm done and finished, we're straight down to Banbridge and away we go again. We've got a scene this week. That's why we're panicking here at the moment to get it ready. Try that, Steve, so you're gonna get a bit more of a drill out of that.
Yes. That's the one. My name is Helen Sloan, and I'm the stills photographer around here. Okay, Trevor, can I have you in with the grey, please? My day was covering the 2 units, which are Dragon and Wolf. Paul, you might be in my frame there. We've just had a photo shoot with Lena, who's always great to have a shoot with, because she's a lot of fun.
I'm running to myself. I'm down I want some gin.
And later on we have Halthor, who plays the mountain, and gonna need a step ladder for that. That's what I've been up to today, in amongst a bit of photo editing and grading some stills, and then sending a hard drive off to New York.
Very, very good.
I think the hardest part of anyone's job on Game of Thrones is there just aren't enough hours in the day, because we've got a lot to get through. But the rest of it's great. We're done. We're set. Yay! Thanks, guys.
This is prop making. Oh my God, this is it. We're almost done.
Yeah.
We're almost done.
Schedule.
That's a lovely schedule. That's what we like to see. 1 page, no matter how big. What are you working on our final days of production?
So we're just breaking down the drawing for the Citadel Library, where we've obviously had to replicate hundreds and hundreds of books, along with some dressing features. So we've been moulding books and casting them out to fill all of the shelves. Generally, everything has to go to the props painting department with Kevin. He will then sort of make things look real.
Yeah, let's go into the paint shop and see if we can find anybody. The books, the Citadel books. We have the Citadel Library this year, and we have 15 or 20 bookshelves that are going to be used in that Samwell scene.
Well, we started with some original books that we kind of damaged them a little bit to create some movement on the pages, and then we gave those to Gavin, and then he put them together and made a mold. So you've still got the back, that's a foam, hard plastic with all the detail in it. We just have to paint them all up. We have about 800 of these to do, so we've got to bear in mind time. Very busy year. Seems to get busier and busier every year, to be honest. Tell you what, at this stage of the year, it's all just a blur.
I'm in charge of putting all this stuff together and getting it out to the units and the crews, make sure it all works. We've got a candle gag for Aria. She swipes it, the end of the candle drops, and then blows out. First one's hot off the presses. Do you want to bring that in? First one's hot off the presses. And that's got a tiny little hole in it there. And if you look at the candle holder itself, we put a little rig in there, which is a little unit which just pulls a little bar away. That drops off, air comes past and blows the candle out.
It'll go through like that. The bar will come up through the centre like that. When the thing goes down, it'll slide off.
That won't help you.
dramatic and sat in the face quite a lot. Oh, splinters.
I didn't.
Well, obviously we're in Marine.
Yes. Yes. Hi. Hi. We're in Marine.
So now we're in B stage, visiting Marine.
Yes, we are. That's what we're
Danny
doing.
makes her triumphant return.
Getting ready for a badass
Yes,
entrance.
yes.
Trying to look angry, but I'm on Game of Thrones, so I'm happy. So it's difficult. Here they are! These are the people who make Game of Thrones happen. This is Jane, who's head of makeup, which is a no small feat.
Glamorous appearance.
This is Nicola, who does my face.
I don't do anything.
It's great face. This is Kirsten, who put this on. She put this on and dyed her own hair in the same colour. Yeah, exactly. It's really hard because I've got dark hair. I don't look anything like this. And now I look like this. And there's a good couple of hours work that goes into that. And this is Kate makeup. More amazing makeup.
Kate, where's my coffee?
I don't want to give away any secrets.
What? What are you doing? Just fixing the telly.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, doing?
Welcome to my crib.
So we're spending most of the day here. We have a little scene with Elena back in King's Landing. So we're in two worlds today, stage A and B, which is our newer stages, which are nice and toasty, not cold like the paint hall.
Yeah.
You don't see our breath on these stages.
Yeah. Make her less blue.
Right. 40 apple, take 2. Yeah. Okay. T-Mark. T-Emily. Okay, settling up, guys. All set out. Here we go. Ready and action. I was wrong, I admit it.
That changes nothing.
Today we're doing a scene with Grey Worm, Tyrion and Missandei.
T-Mark. T-Emily.
Our job on set is to capture any actuality and dialogue and sound effects that happen while we're doing a scene.
We will not go to the beach. If we go to the beach, the masters will take the pyramid.
We'll just cover that all day, make sure everything's clean, make sure we've got all the dialogue, all the words are there.
I listen to Grey Worm throughout the day and just make sure that the accent's not too strong and that the accent is following the storyline.
The pyramid is the only place in the city we can defend. We stay here.
We've seen him in other episodes learning English, but now we get to see him as a character who's very articulate.
Today we're doing General lighting. We've got 2 sets today, so at the moment we're just lighting wall sconces in one and creating atmosphere. So there'll be like a lot of wind work and a lot of flames on the walls.
My job on Game of Thrones is a video operator. If they need to see back any of the previous takes quickly, then I can play back for the director, for producers, or for anyone who needs the continuity from previous takes and previous setups and things like that.
As we speak now, the unit's just moved over to the next stage where we're setting up for part of a scene with Diana Rigg, where her character comes out and finds that Marjorie, her beloved granddaughter, has not completely turned to the dark side. So there is hope for her in that moment, and there's probably about 3 shots to grab before we wrap on that today.
We're in the paint hall today, which is very cold, although it's actually warmer outside than it is in the paint hall. We're filming a scene where the Scepter Unella finally gets her comeuppance.
We're drowning a lady, waterboarding, water torture. With wine, it'll be great.
Basically, what I'll be doing is for each cut, I'll obviously have to reset the levels of the wines, so the fake wines that we're using as cranberry juice at the minute. For the glass, then we would obviously have to keep it in level with that, and then for the jug, got to be level for the jug as well. So keep it pretty precise, you know.
We're at the paint hall today. We've been on location for about a month now, and we're just getting everything back in, getting everything sorted.
It's our time to sort of gather and clean everything, get ready to go out again, because we're out again tomorrow. With all these big, massive, epic battle scenes and stuff we've been doing, it's been tough on the equipment, so you got to keep it clean.
I'm the trainee group for Dragon Unit. We're in charge of camera movement, camera placement, stuff like that. But as a trainee, I'm just supporting the main groups. There's 2 of them in there at the minute.
So how long does it take them to put them in the armor?
You do tráilers. You see them,
And an apple box.
Hathor's been in for a good couple of hours already. Prosthetics takes a lot longer than anything else does. Yeah, 10 minutes for the girls on this one for the armor, and it's ready to go.
It looks amazing. Yeah, it's really cool, man. Step this way, step.
It's never the same day at the paint hall. You can come here and have a completely different day every day of the week for the whole year. You'll never do the same thing twice.
And then when you get to here, that's when she'll see you for the first time.
Oh, I don't understand. Hello. Hi, darling.
Here we go. We're ready. Stand by. Action.
Confess. Confess. Sir Gregor. This is Sir Gregor Clegane.
We've got the wonderful Hannah on the table doing a fantastic scream, I have to say. She's got a great kind of set of vocal equipment and she knows exactly how to use it.
Shame.
I am Ryan Stewart and I'm a stunt performer. Today, the process wasn't too bad. It's really just making sure we harnessed up when we got our pads on. This is all stuff that we do a fair bit of, so we know what to expect.
3, 2, 1. We have a harness that goes underneath the costume, which has got 52 different points on it to attach the wires.
We'll have the wires connected on different parts of our bodies. We'll have them sometimes wrapped between your legs, which is going to make you somersault, or we'll have them wrapped around your body, which is going to make you barrel roll a bit more. We'll just have them on your back to make it more of a straight pull.
We've got the stunties on a rig here. They're getting whipped up into the ceiling, and we're just pushing some air on the clothes, making it look a little bit more exciting when they get blown up there. I've been in front of it before. It's not the most pleasant experiences.
It's cool, it's fun. Sometimes you feel like you're sort of leaving your mind behind and then you sort of catch up to yourself a few seconds later.
Almost always in the last month of production, we spend a tremendous amount of time shooting all the little pieces that we need to complete our visual effects.
It's a very short little piece. Maybe the blow-up is a second and a half, but it starts inside the set and then translates outside to various parts of the building blowing up. To sell the whole story, you have to actually have real people that the visual effects department can then turn into disintegrating people.
We had all of our actors being blown with wind, and we had some of the stunt guys falling over, and from that we gauge what elements we want to shoot to lay into those shots to make them more dynamic.
I'm the video playback operator on Dragon Unit. Basically, my job is to record everything that the cameras are recording and to display it on monitors all over set for the entire crew. The VFX unit tend to rely on the video playback operator quite heavily. So basically what I can do is, if we record something, say, a few weeks ago, and then like today we're recording the stunt work, I then overlay both of these together to make sure that all the timings are right, just to make sure that when they go to post, that everything's going to work and everything fits.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That is a wrap.
Scene complete, guys. Well done. Thank you very much.
Hello. Single, ready to mingle. Couple. Looking for a good time.
Tonight we fully load everything up and then the whole process starts again tomorrow. We'll go to Tomb and unload the trucks and a new day on Game of Thrones will begin.
Game of Thrones gave me my start in the film industry, and since then I've been all over the world because of it, so I'm very grateful.
Not a lot of jobs allow you to see your work sort of lauded all around the world. You can say I was there, and I remember how hard that day was, but look what happened. Very cool.
Game of Thrones has become a massive part of my life, and it's just great to be able to look back many years to come and say I was part of that.
It totally changed my life for the better, from sculpting to the bosses making fun of me.
It's just really enjoyable. I mean, you get to see things that you wouldn't see on any other show, on any other film, in fact. I will continuously come back. I'm just very loyal and very proud to have my name on the credits.
When I started reading the books, I've never dreamed of working on a TV production of those books. So for me personally, it's been quite a journey and quite an experience.
I look at what we get to do. I look at the 3D creatures. You look at the spectacular set extensions. You get to travel to all these fabulous countries. Like many people on the show, I think I might have the best job on earth.
As soon as we wrote episode 9, we knew that it was going to have to operate on a scale that we'd never operated before.
We'd had a number of nighttime battles, we've had a number of sieges, but this is the first pitched battle, or at least the first large pitched battle. And so it was something different for us.
All of it is action with almost no dialogue and lots of horses and many extras and a giant.
The amount of supporting artists and the size of the crew, how many cameras they've got going, the magnitude of all the sets and everything. It's unbelievable.
It's an intimate story, the Battle of the Bastards, following Jon Snow and what he's going to go through, but you're trying to set that on a huge canvas.
It was hard. It was a long, long slog.
Cut rehearsal, thank you. Reset, well done, lads.
Bob, the Battle of the Bastards, is a long battle. Luckily, we got Miguel Sapochnik back, who was our maestro from Hard Home in season 5.
I was looking for what's the thread, what's the thing that's going to take me through the battle, and what works in Hard Home, I think what works in any battle is following the characters.
Hard Home, I think, set a new bar for us. But that was basically a massacre. This is a battle. This is the story of a battle. We've never done that before.
They really wanted to kind of get into the mindset of what it would be like to be in a battle like that.
It was fluid all the way through. It morphed, it changed. But the most important thing all the way through is it can't just be a battle. If it's just a battle, the audience don't have stakes in it. You have to be following someone, and we decide to follow Jon. Ramsay's weapon all the way through is antagonizing people, drawing them into a trap, and Jon completely falls for it.
He doesn't account for Ramsay's gifts at psychological manipulation, which Sansa warns him about.
He's kind of thought, this guy is going to do something stupid and honorable because he's not going to be able to control himself, so I'll shoot his brother with a bow and arrow.
Rickon's not going to make it out of this thing because Rickon is a threat to Ramsay's legitimacy as Warden of the North. He's a true-born Stark. There's no possible outcome where this ends well for Rickon.
When Jon sees little Rickon running toward him, all the planning and all the tactics just go out the window.
Part of the reason that people follow him into battle is because he's brave and he says, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, and that's Jon. But it's also a weakness for him as a military commander because he lets his emotions get the better of him.
There's no way he can't gallop towards his brother who is being shot at with arrows and try and save him, so he falls into that trap.
But he's waited until Jon Snow is within Archer's range so that they can start shooting him immediately.
He's seen his brother be killed, so he falls into the next trap of galloping towards Ramsay. Every step of the way does exactly what he wants him to do.
And then there is no more plan. The plan is gone. It's just trying to save Jon and then win the battle. And everything that can go wrong goes wrong.
Probably my favorite shot of the whole season is when we're behind Jon Snow and he sees that cavalry wall galloping towards him. And part of the reason it's such a great shot is it's all real. That's 40 horses charging full speed at Kit Harington.
Until the last minute, I was stood there facing off against this cavalry charge, which is really scary. We're a bit annoyed because I think everyone's going to think it was CGI, and it wasn't.
Camilla, our horse mistress, kept asking every year. She said, give me some more stuff to do. Like, this year was boring. It's just people trotting from here to there on their horses. So finally we gave her enough to do.
I read the outline and went, wow, okay, this is adventurous. How are we going to deal with this? It's the biggest amount of horse requirement I've ever had on Game of Thrones. We flew over in May to kind of start discussing how we were going to prep it, how many horses we were going to use. We decided on 80 in the end. So when we first see both armies, we'll use 80 on the Stark side, and then we use 80 on the Boltons, so we're using the maximum. Then when we start to clash, we'll split it in half.
It was friendly for horses, and the farmer who owned it had a field next door, so we put up a temporary 90-horse stable with areas to keep the tack, the feed. I mean, it's quite an enterprise putting 80 horses out.
When we had horses charging past me, those were all real horses.
I obviously work very closely with Rowley, putting it all together. And we make channels so it looks like they're clashing, but they're not. The horses are actually just passing through, you know, like 2-foot channels so they can clear out.
We are going to make that look as close as possible to a collision without actually colliding the horses. So in very tight formation, we'll have those guys cross and they will pull the horses as they cross through. But we're going to try and make that something that's not really been done before. We're falling them onto a very thick falling bed so we don't injure the horses or injure the guys.
We sat down for, you know, months and months in advance planning it, all the safety and the care of the horses, because at the end of the day, that's the most important part of my job, is to make sure they're looked after well.
I've known Camilla and the guys since day one on this, and this is by far and away the most ambitious thing they've had to do, and they nailed it. It was almost the easiest part of it.
Kit did 95% of Bob. It was all him. When he came for his lessons, he was coming in, you know, from July.
Never really been on a horse since season 1. And suddenly I was galloping and leaning off the horse and vaulting on and everything.
Initially, the idea was to almost never leave John's side, ever. And that's how the Oneer was born, out of this idea of what happens if you just stay on the ground with John.
The Oneer, as we called it, was one long shot which doesn't cut.
We start off with horses just missing him, horse falls happening.
Whereas in most sword fights, you sell it for a camera there, and then you'll switch around for camera. So one of those beats will work somewhere. This was all one long steady cam shot behind us. So every angle had to sell for camera, and it had to work as one long piece.
He has one of the enemies stumble into him, somebody else stabs that guy through the head and he just misses the sword, only for that guy to then get hit with an arrow and drop, and then 2 horses collide behind him. It just goes on and on and on.
That was really hard. Sword fighting is really hard like that.
It's all going to be him, and we're not going to use a double for that. He's also got a 6-way fight with 6 guys static. He's got a 6-way travelling fight. But he picks it up really easily and he loves it, so it's just really nice to work with him.
The sword play was very different to what I expected. I didn't think it was so technical, so I've got a huge amount of respect for these guys now.
When you rehearse a fight, you have tons of square meters to do everything and rehearse every move, and it's very secure. But then you have to add people running around me. My sword was going like this and this and this. And I'm also very happy that I didn't kill anybody.
I had at least a good month on and off, what have you, in intervals before we started shooting. As a boxer, you know, you're always on your toes, but when it comes to sword play, you really have to plant yourself. That was quite different for me, and that took the longest for me to get my head around.
You want it to feel crowded and mayhem and like, you know, anything can happen anytime, but I really don't want anything to happen anytime. I want what we plan to happen and it look really cool and let's not hurt anybody.
To get across the field and follow the horses at the speed at which they're moving, and horses move really, really fast, you need a special rig, and the Russian arm is just such a fun machine to work with, and it gives you such dynamic shots.
It's basically a camera tracking vehicle. It's a remote control arm that sits on a Land Rover in our case.
The Russian arm is a very sophisticated bit of equipment. It's a fixed arm that is remotely controlled from inside a vehicle, and it can travel as fast as that vehicle can travel.
Throughout the Battle of the Bastards, we had a number of tracking vehicles, one of which was the Vampire Bat with the Russian arm on it.
on a muddy, slippery field over about 500 or 600 yards with very fast horses. That was the vehicle to chase them properly and get the results we wanted. They worked very well. The results are amazing.
There's a little bit of research goes into what is the best thing to use, and sometimes you end up with a piece of kit that's perfect, and then sometimes you're better off with a piece of elastic and the cameraman running along.
Camera's ready. Here we go. Stand by to shoot. Fabian, happy to go in this light, yes?
There's so much going on with 4 cameras and a whole shooting crew. For me, the biggest thing was how can I keep a consistency visually over 24 shooting days altogether. You know, we tried to shoot everything in clouds, or even if there was a sunny day, there was some cloud cover every now and then, so we always made sure that we had another take in cloud. But the main worry from a cinematic point of view was that Saintfield was just a huge, massive, vast field. And it was also very muddy and very complicated to move around.
Game of Thrones is so big and it's so ambitious. You have to not be intimidated by it, but you have to embrace it.
The first time I saw Saintfield, my initial reaction was laughter, because I couldn't believe the size of it. 26 acres.
Just storyline-wise, if you're talking about a bowl where everyone would run into the bottom of a field and meet, my first suggestion to everyone was Saintfield.
We arrived to look at a field in June that was essentially a valley that had bad drainage, and we had a lot less time to prep this than we had to prep Hardhome. It was bigger and more complex.
We're not talking about someone's garden here. It's a huge field that had to be prepped and ready every single day. Initially, we surveyed the field. We made models of the field. We made model armies to represent the 2 armies. That was really for Miguel, so that he could then plot how he was going to work all that out.
I knew the set pieces sounded very, very big. I knew that was going to be hundreds of people in the field. I knew it was going to be a matter of access.
It was close to Belfast, so it didn't demand an hour's drive up into the glens, and we knew that the farmer was going to be reseeding and ploughing up the field at some point, whether we shot there or not.
Thankfully, we have a very good reputation of doing what we say we'll do and fixing what we say we'll fix. When we say we're really going to absolutely decimate your field, we mean that, and I think they were prepared for it.
It had a certain amount of topography, which meant that you didn't see for miles and miles. So the idea was that you could set the battle in a place grand enough and big enough to feel that's where a battle would take place, but you would be contained by a bowl of hills around you. So a lot of the filming could be set against real backgrounds rather than relying on extensions from visual effects. Then you had to make sure that the horses can run here. There's no good finding out after you've done all this work that there's rabbit holes all over the place.
I suppose the biggest challenge was going to be the ground.
We have to go in there and we have to turn the ground brown. I mean, obviously, we can turn it into mud with no effort at all, but ideally it's brown and it's got sprinkling of snow in it, and it has to feel more landish rather than where it actually is in County Down is quite lush and green. We had to snow up all the trees around it, so everything felt winter. Even though it's a bit of ground, it was as big a set as you could say we were going to build, because it took, you know, a lot of time to turn it into the final result.
As soon as it started to rain, that valley turned into this bog, and then it got worse and worse and worse. We were very lucky in that we had limited rain, but the little rain that we did have marred production completely.
Belfast and this area is known for a lot of rain, so we had to have strategies in place that would allow the horses to be able to run up and down without creating so much mud that they wouldn't be able to run up and down anymore. So every night the Greens Department would go back through and they would prepare the ground again for the following day.
And we worked very closely with the Greens Department, putting down gravel, scraping away the mud levels which were just building up and becoming unsafe for horses. So we had a sort of a reclamation crew. In the morning they were up at 3, 4 a.m. with wheelbarrows and putting down solid material so that we could stage some of the big runs.
Suddenly you're trying to get 500 extras to run in a certain formation they've been practicing all week with shields that are 6 foot tall and weigh kind of 20, 25 pounds each. If it wasn't enough that you've got to get these people to interact safely, you then also have to multiply them.
Go! Go! Follow your commander!
You've got 2 giant armies that are opposing one another. You know you're not going to have more than a few hundred extras on one side or the other, so you've got a lot of crowd replication.
We knew it was going to be a bit of a challenge, making this thing feel like there were thousands of people facing each other.
We had a lot of cavalry, a lot of infantry. 1-1, the Giant is involved.
Most of it would be photographed, but it also needed a lot of digital enhancement.
There's a great deal of time spent figuring out what the various elements are and how to shoot those elements. We shoot horses falling and charging toward one another that we can use as elements, but you've got things happening that you can't shoot in any real way. You've got horses crashing into each other, and you've got a giant punching out a horse.
There isn't really a 14-foot giant. There is a 7'2" actor that we've brought in. He becomes a realistic character after we throw a few camera tricks at him.
Every time we shoot with him, you got to shoot it twice or 3 times just to make it all work for VFX. So he's kind of a diva, but at the same time, he's just a great-looking giant.
We wanted a large performer because somebody who would be 14 feet tall would have more weight and mass to move around. A person who's a normal size would have a very difficult time pulling that off. Working with someone who is 7'2" and then is also an actor puts us in a very good spot.
You know, all credit due to the prosthetics team, the VFX team, and to Ian White, who portrays him on screen. He's the best giant there is.
There are a lot of shots that we put together that require a lot of technical precision. We start to get into complex areas that we haven't really broken ground with on the series before, where it is fun and exciting, but also very challenging.
When we first walked down into the rehearsals and we saw this guy swearing and insulting all of our extras, and we thought, oh, no one's going to come back tomorrow.
From day one, you know, let's be honest, we shout at them a lot. After 27 years in the Royal Marines, I've found that I thoroughly enjoy bringing that experience into the civilian world of TV production.
It's been interesting, very, very interesting. He's got a way of words.
Shield man, I'm looking right at you. Hold that fucking pike there, please.
He was incredibly well liked and respected, in spite of the fact that he would insult everybody at some point or other in the meanest possible way.
I know you're mental, but I need you to move at the same time, fellas.
First thing in the morning, we
Visita
warm
mi
them
canal.
up, go through a brief, a bit of artistic expression, building them up, bring them in step onto the battlefield so they are in the zone.
Every morning they would stand on either edge of the field and they would hurl insults at each other and chants.
Up onto the top of the hill. 5 minutes notice to move if we need you on the Bolton side. You know, that weak lot of piss over the other side. Okay?
The extras are incredibly keen, but they actually have to be trained in a way that is slightly militaristic, so they can do things quickly, they line up quickly, so they can become more and more people.
Something is called tiling. So a lot of time was actually spent in prep, teaching these hundreds of extras to move swiftly from one block to another so that we could do the tiling efficiently.
They're trying to get us quickly moving from different setups, which is obviously important on a big screen like this. There's maybe about 400, 500 guys here that are doing the extras, but they're trying to make it look like 10,000.
Camera time is very expensive, so what we need to do is instill that sense of emergency so that when we say stand up on move, they move. You will march onto the battlefield.
Jamie understands the notion of how to motivate people. When they're motivated, they move. And it's amazing the difference that makes when you have the right kind of people working on your crew, because they help move everything along.
The Battle of the Bastards becomes incredibly compact. All these combatants forced into this incredibly tight space on the battlefield, partly crammed in by bodies.
You've got horses, you've got, you know, men of either side just piled up in this massive heap.
The body pile was absolutely enormous in terms of its scale and ambition. All of those prop bodies had to be dressed in the appropriate uniforms. We had to have the shields and the flags. You then need to dress the horses in their saddlery. You need to make sure that the correct sigil is on the horse.
There was a whole team of prop guys out there, day upon day, moving these things around to camera.
I have the mechanical horses arrived at the base. We're at the pile. So we've got a mechanical horse rig down there. It looks very much like a real horse, and we have it on a hydraulic ram and it rears up. And then we can actually take out 2 safety pins and it will rear up and go over backwards with the rider. And this is going to help us tell the story of the body pile.
We have pneumatic horses' legs. So they all work on air, and we have
5 horses' legs to kick people, as if there's horses dying, injured underneath. Also, we've got blood flying through the air off camera, which is to register, with dirt off camera. You know, we call them shit kickers or blood kickers. And then we've got scoops the animal feed scoops that we throw dirt through the air as if the horses are kicking it up. Anything to make it look as messy as possible and as dirty as possible.
I would like to put on record right now that I have had more shit thrown at me than any other actor on this show.
We use blood rigs. There's certain kills that we can keep it within camera, so no visual effects needed. And we put blood rigs on whoever we can. We can put them almost anywhere.
Out of all the most complicated and technical stuff that we had for blood rigs, what proved to be the best was a small shovel, place some blood and bits on, throw it in the air.
Even though I know that all of these bodies are fake, it was deeply moving.
It's pretty grim. It's very brutal, actually, to look at. I've never seen that before, ever.
It comes from reading real accounts of these various battles, both medieval and even more modern ones. You read accounts of battles in the Civil War where the bodies were piled so thick it actually became an obstruction on the battlefield.
It's such a big undertaking to try and make a body pile of hundreds of horses and dead people. I needed it to fit into the story, and what we ended up doing is using it as this obstacle by which the Stark army could not get past without going over it, and as they went over it, they would be shot down by the Bolton army.
David and Dan are huge students of history, and I think they had a really great time when they wrote the script, devising these tactical moves and cherry-picking from different points in history. The one that comes to mind is the pincer move that Ramsay pulls on John and the gang.
We went back to the Roman fight against the Carthaginians in the Battle of Cannae, where the Romans got caught in an encirclement by Hannibal.
The Carthaginians were able to completely surround the Romans and just destroy them.
It was a pincer movement of horses that literally crushed the Romans into a hole so that they couldn't get out and they died.
We used that as sort of our model, making Jon Snow and his side the Romans in this situation. Also, it was patterned not exactly on the Battle of Agincourt, but that was the inspiration.
Battle of Agincourt was essentially a battle where people were crushed to the point where they couldn't move, and so soldiers were dying because they were being crushed by their own people because they were jumping on top of each other, which is where the body pile came out as an idea. And so we took both of those battles and applied them to Bob.
These battles, up until like the 1700s, it was very much a cannon fodder situation. It was just a battle of attrition. It's just who had the most numbers would win.
It was really in the writing of the script where David and Dan worked out that tactical stuff. And then when Miguel Sapochnik came on, he of course brings his ideas to it.
Limitations are everything. Actually, they're kind of what makes things interesting and makes you creative. For example, in Bob, one of the problems was we had to snow the trees, but the snow machines can't get high enough to reach the top of the trees, so we're trying to think, well, how do we stop people from seeing the background? So we decided that we'll go for smoke. So now we need a source for the smoke. And so I thought, well, why don't we have some flayed men upside down on crosses and, you know, do a little Photoshop, and you think, oh, that's kind of horrible, isn't it? We should have more.
They're made out of steel. We do have a wooden one, which is a hero one for close-ups, and a high-temperature silicon body.
These very sweet prosthetics people turn up, and it's like out of the back of their car comes a flayed body. They are so grim.
Quite simple to make, really. You know, it's getting them to stand up to the temperatures that's the difficult part.
Exactly the same example of the creative solution can be given for the shields. The wall of shields was something that came in because we didn't have the money to do a wall of horses, and so we had to find something else indicating some impassable object that created a crush. And the Bolton sign is that upside-down flayed man, and once you put a bunch of shields with that red cross against a black background, it became very graphic.
Kit and Miguel were great at just finding these wonderful character moments within the spectacle that weren't necessarily even in the script.
I think what I was finding throughout filming this was moments of giving up. And the first moment we found that was when the crush starts happening and he just stops for a moment. And then he tries to fight his way back and he gets pushed over, he gets trampled.
John is almost literally buried alive beneath the bodies.
He was being almost killed by his own men, not on purpose, but just in this wave of fear that kind of overcomes everyone as they try to get out of the way of this incoming wall of shields.
and
tus
then something
trailers.
drives him to fight
Visita
up.
mi
And that
canal.
moment where it comes up and he gasps for breath, he's reborn again in a way.
Winterfell is a place that really means so much in the context of the show, and the episode is really about bringing things home. The final act takes place in the Winterfell courtyard, and it ultimately boils down to Jon against Ramsay and Sansa against Ramsay.
I always wanted to do a scene with Jon Snow. It's really nice to get to sort of have the two bastards there together, facing off.
It's a horrible moment when you see your hero go a bit too far.
The only direction I gave to Kit was he's not a human anymore. He doesn't feel any sympathy, empathy for this guy. We actually spent an entire day, 10 hours, with Kit on top of Ewan beating him. And I just shot it from every single angle I possibly could.
We did a little trick that I've used before where we actually got them to make contact at 12 frames, so you then double it up speed-wise, which is 24, and it looks like they're really beating the hell out of each other.
And what we wanted to try and get with that was that he's just kneading bread. He's just flattening this person's face, and that's what's changed in Jon for me. A monster has risen in him a bit, which I think should be unsettling for the viewers.
Ewan just had to lie there with his head on the ground and trust Kit not to smack him properly.
I actually did punch Ewan in the face twice by accident.
If you get caught a couple of times, you get caught. You expect it. He's not doing it properly if you don't.
He was really nice about it. But it was the end of the day and it was getting dark, and I felt it clock him twice, and you just don't stop because you might be getting something which is really good.
But, you know, it's understandable, and Kit's giving it his all, you know, and I wouldn't want him to not. Got a shield in the chin as well, which I really enjoyed.
I had to buy him a pint after that one.
The Battle of the Bastards is the biggest thing that we've ever done on the show, but it really comes down to a very personal struggle at the end.
There's just no part of Jon that's not going to end this thing now. He is a deeply good human being, but he's also a human being.
There's nothing he wants more than to beat Ramsay to death with his own fists, and then he sees his sister.
I think Jon then realizes, you know, as he's about to kill him, he's on the verge of death. He realizes this is your fight, this is your guy to kill, because he understands what she's been through.
Where is he?
It's a very justified ending so that Sansa has the power in the end.
Performance-wise, it's a very important scene for these two different characters to be doing, and I wanted them to be able to perform and interact with each other. But when it came down to it, Ramsay's not going to give her the satisfaction of ever showing that he's been beat.
Until the end, he's like, they're not going to do anything to me, because his arrogance.
For Sansa, she is never going to show him any feelings whatsoever.
She's been oppressed for so long. This is the moment where she's taking back what's rightfully hers.
So they end up playing it incredibly solitary versions of the scene where neither of them give each other anything. These two characters loathe each other in a way that made the death more frightening and more grim. And as Kit said the other day, one of the great things about season 6 is you see a lot of good people do bad things.
Your house will disappear. Your name will disappear. All memory of you will disappear.
It's such a strong moment for her because all her life she's been affected by these men who have just done such terrible things to her.
I mean, it's nice to get to do a final scene with Sophie after last season. And
this is the first time that she's actually been able to step up and do the dirty work herself and get what she wants done by herself. It's my favorite scene.
Her walk away, that final shot, was so crucial, and just to get that little hint of a smile just right. I think we ended up making poor Sophie do it, 12 or 13 times in the middle of the night. It's not a big smile, it's just a little hint of a smile.
Sophie doesn't say very much, but I think it may be my favorite thing that she's ever done on this show.
We've been excited for quite some time to get back to the Dothraki, partly just because as a tribe, we always loved them in season 1.
The Dothraki were such majestic, terrible, brutal, fun people to work with.
It's an intriguing culture, and I think we defined certain areas of it in season 1, but we didn't have the time to give it the kind of depth and originality we brought to the other worlds. So this year, we wanted to build on what we had done.
We feel like this time was our chance to revisit that world, to revisit their city of Vaes Dothrak and give us a real sense of what that city feels like and looks like in a way that we never got in season 1.
Not since season 1 have we had an opportunity to do something like this.
Daenerys is in a bit of a tough spot. She has been recaptured by the Dothraki.
One of the things that was interesting for us is, seeing how Dany can be strong when she's not in a position of power, where she's not sitting on her mahogany bench at the top of the steps of the audience chamber in the Great Pyramid.
Queen Daenerys, tales of your beauty were not exaggerated.
I thank you.
Now she's hostage.
These are people that she knows very well, but that's not necessarily a good thing because she knows what it means to be a captive of the Dothraki.
أنها جاي خالون مور عجلنت فين يدير تي جايان فوس بمارتو كيك.
She knows this culture. She is better at negotiating and manipulating seemingly more powerful men. And she isn't waiting for someone to come rescue her.
It's almost a feint that Jorah and Daario are tracking her and trying to rescue her. We really did not want them to rescue her because Dany is Daenerys Targaryen and she's the least in need of rescue of any woman alive. So we wanted it to be her doing, and we wanted it to be her turning the tables on these cows who thought they have this Khaleesi they're going to put back in her place.
She's trying to kind of get her bearings, and if she is perceived as being passive and in no way a threat, then she can do what Daenerys does best, which is sit and wait and then fuck motherfuckers up. Yeah, I can't say that, can I?
It was interesting this year having to revisit the culture of the Dothraki. They're a pillaging, ravaging nation.
Whereas season 1 focused essentially on Khal Drogo's Khalasar, here we get a sense of the larger structure of the Dothraki culture, and that it is rather structured.
Each tribe within the Dothraki as a people have their own Khals, so they have their own leaders. And a Khal becomes a Khal by being undefeated. So every time he loses a battle, they cut off his hair.
A Dothraki's braid, if it's long, that means he's a pretty fearsome warrior, because if you lose a battle, you have to cut your braid in shame. There's no one Khal that rules over all of the Dothraki. They are these separate roving tribes that pillage and rape and raid all over Essos.
They're organized into hordes, you would say hordes, led by a Khal. Khal takes a Khaleesi, can have multiple Khaleesis, and that's the lady of the horde. Like the queen of the horde, although not the kind of queen that would be recognized in Westeros, as she doesn't really have any real power. It's very much a male-centric society.
A woman's place in the Dothraki culture is a subservient one. Women are taken as spoils, women are taken as slaves, women are raped and brutalized, often by Khalasars when a Khalasar raids a village or a city.
Women are traded, women are sold. But curious enough, some of the most respected members of the Dothraki culture are the widows of the Khals.
If the Khal dies, that Khaleesi then becomes part of the Dosh Khaleen, which are kind of the old crones, is what they're called. And they just sit out their days, being respected and revered by the Dothraki as a people, in that they're wise, and the Khals go to them for answers to really difficult questions.
The High Priestess is the head of that group of people. She protects them.
The High Priestess of the Dosh Khaleen is a fun character. I mean, she's not coming at it from the perspective of somebody who's looking to punish this young person with inflated ideas of her own greatness. I think she's coming at it from the perspective of a person who remembers what it was like to have those own ideas herself.
Ay Khalisari Khalarun Vejvena. Ma Maurice Vascoe Khalisi Haladro.
Dothraki are mainly a wandering, nomadic people, but at certain set times in their calendar, they return to Vaes Dothrak, which is their capital city, where they all return and all the Khalasars come back for particular important moments, days, holy days.
Vaes Dothrak is their spiritual home, and as a fighting people, it's where no weapons are allowed, so all weapons need to be left outside the city.
What are you doing? It's forbidden to carry weapons in the sacred city.
We're asking a dog to hand over his teeth.
You know, we're back in Spain this year as we were last year, and again, it's one of these sets you walk into and it just totally blows you away.
Every year when you come back to Game of Thrones, there's a couple of those wow moments. Being here on location just outside of Almeria, where the city of Vaes Dothrak has been built, basically, was definitely one of those wow moments for me.
We just went ahead and built our own city, because that's what Game of Thrones does. It does it for real. There's no, like, pushover cardboard cutout. It's real villages that they've built.
The original outline and the first script was like, we're seeing Vaes Dothrak in all its amazing glory that we only touched upon in season 1 and you never really saw it. So it's like, wow, it's wide open and we know this has got to be huge.
The Dothraki as a people were already really quite well established. It was just a matter of adding more and more detail to it, because this year we really do get such a good look at them. And being able to see sort of the city of Vaes Dothrak and what is it like when they actually sort of stop and put down some sort of a permanent base.
Well, that was really fun to do, actually, was to design what would this camp be, because they're a nomadic people, so they don't carry around a lot of big things. And I think they did a really nice job. The art department did a beautiful job with it. And visual effects is extending it to make it even bigger than it was. But we had a pretty big camp there. We had a lot of backgrounds and a lot of dressing, and it feels very vivid, I think, and really full of life.
For the first time ever, I found myself looking at African architecture, and we were very fortunate to come across a village in Africa called Benin, B-E-N-I-N, and that has such a unique style of building that somehow it spoke very loudly that that was what the Dothraki would be like. And it has these wonderful big thatched roofs and quite crazy earthen architecture that's not like anything you would expect.
Then we thought about embedding it into the landscape. If you look, the whole temple's got a bit of an embankment around it with all dry grass and so forth in it. And, you know, that seemed to make a new feel, something that we hadn't seen before and perhaps doesn't really exist elsewhere.
What we ended up with was a system of streets that we were able to use, as well as being able to build this temple that should stand for the whole city.
Tráilers. Visita
Building
mi
something
canal.
that needs to be burned just means that we have to be really mindful of what materials we use, how it's going to burn, in what order it's going to burn. And these are things that are worked out very closely with special effects.
On a burn like this, special effects lead the way. They're using liquid gas to fuel it. It's going to get so hot they need to vent. Venting the heat, venting the smoke was everything. So we haven't built 360-degree circular temple. There's a big wedge, if you like, that's been left out so they can ventilate.
What I wanted to do is have this building that had lots of combustible stuff on it, so when it burns for real. And with the liquid propane coming through, makes it look like an inferno. No way can she survive coming out of that. Basically, with the aid of construction and art department, certain parts had to be able to withstand a good amount of heat, and other parts were obviously, like the roof, that thatch, would never survive more than one burn. So that's how we pretty much had to do it for the exterior.
Then the question is, where do you burn the interior?
Vos mana vos hal. Ana voka ki yeri. Vos ma an have a drink. Machin an have a knock.
The decision was made very early on to build 2 temples. We would build the exterior in Spain, which we would actually burn.
And then we built the interior of it back here in the car park in Belfast. So it was just an exterior shell in Almeria, and the interior was a realised 360-degree space.
The interior, obviously, when you've got actors and everybody inside, it's pretty much a pizza oven in its shape. So we had to be pretty clever with that.
The interior burning was scary. Genuinely frightening. Where I was like, oh, I'm not fireproof. Whoops. I forgot about that one.
We had to have a completely controlled environment for the big shot of Dany walking through the flames.
When she leaves, we actually dressed up her stunt double in a fire suit and a fire mask and walked her through some very intense flame, which created the pocket of air for when Emilia does her walk, which is without flame, just with the lighting effect, that can be comped in, but it looks like the flame reacts correctly to a body walking through it.
in terms of what it's like to watch something that we build burn, I think everybody finds that really satisfying.
The end of episode 604 is definitely meant consciously to echo the end of episode 110. It's Danny stepping out of a flame to great effect, just this time on a much, much larger scale. And this really, in one fell swoop, pretty much makes her the queen of the Dothraki without her having to say a word.
What I wanted to create was this kind of reverse-engineered wave like you see at a sporting event, only it was of these people bowing before her as she came through the fire. The notion was that you start to see one person go down, and then 2, and then 4, and then 8 and 16, until it becomes like these massive dominoes of 5,000 people, which is created with the help of the visual effects department. We had 400 extras, and for anyone who knows anything about television, that's about 320 extras more than you get on any television show ever, anywhere.
We experienced last year the caliber of extras that we got in Spain. And again, it was just repeated. I've just never worked with such hardworking, happy to be there people. And it just infects the whole set.
They're very enthusiastic about being with us, which is fantastic because these extras get up so early in the morning. A lot of times they're there in their skimpy outfit, and we're standing there and our Jesus, it's cold. And meanwhile, they're there with maybe a little blanket on that we have to strip off as soon as we want to start shooting. So to me, that after a 12-hour day or 13-hour day for them, that they're still loving it. I mean, it really is a fun place to shoot, and the extras are just extraordinary.
We went through the process of having these extras place themselves in different portions around the temple, and then they do what they call tile work, which is they lay it in, and by the time that they're done, it looks like you have 5,000 extras bowing before Danny.
One of the things that goes through Daria's mind is that he thought he knew the extent of her strength and power, but seeing her walk out of the burning temple, it just blows him away.
The two of them are kind of in a similar situation in terms of watching Daenerys. I think it's in that moment that they're both filled with a kind of awe and loss at the same time, because they know that if she's capable of doing that, then why would she ever need them? And the truth is that she doesn't.
I banished you. Twice. You came back. Twice.
Jorah comes back to win my favor, but in that journey, he becomes very sick.
The moment actually in the series where she was probably most likely to touch me, I have to retreat. You must send me away.
I think Daenerys doesn't know what she's going to do with him and the conversation that's going to be had. But then before they can get anywhere, he shows her that. And I think that cuts to the core of the matter, which is that she loves him. She knows that he's doing the best for her by walking away. But then she kind of one-ups him by saying, "You're not leaving me. I'm giving you a job.
I command you to heal yourself."
What Daenerys says, which is, I need you by my side when I take the Seven Kingdoms, that's what Jorah's lived for ever since he met her. So he's giving him a reason to go out and find that cure, not for himself, but for her.
Saying goodbye to this character was going to be painful for the audience, but more painful for Dany, given her conflicted emotions about Jorah. And I remember talking to the actors about keeping the tears inside as long as you could. And that when Jorah admits his love for Dany, that would be probably something he couldn't totally meet her eyes.
I love you. I have no idea how directors put it together and storyboard it, and you'll describe a shot, this bit belongs there, and you think, well, okay, I'll take your word for it. And then you see it all pieced together, and it's so organic and it's seamless. And there are so many variables in Thrones, there are so many elements, and VisFX is a big part of it.
The VFX department brings in all those things that you can't really get. We could go get a dragon from the zoo and film them. I think we would, but there are no dragons. She's flying around. We're going to film her on a buck, which is basically just sort of this green saddle thing that's about the shape of the top of Drogon that she'll sit on, and we'll film her and then composite her into the CG world.
Emilia did a sensational job when I shot her on the urban cowboy riding bull. And having the horses active in the scene charged the scene with a certain amount of chaos and energy. That was totally realistic, and brought the level up of how the Dothraki extras reacted. They get on board with her speech. It's extraordinarily rousing.
One of our favorite moments from season 1 was watching Khal Drogo deliver a speech very similar to this one, and she's echoing almost the exact same language. It was one of our favorite moments because it was a big turning point in the story where we really see Dany's ambitions coming to the fore, and also partly because of Jason Momoa's performance, who was so incredible at delivering a speech in a made-up language.
Shooting scenes on Dothraki is challenging, especially for actors who haven't done the show before. It was really impressed upon them ahead of time that they really have to know this stuff. Like, there's no improvising. Like, you really, really, really have to study it. And so they work with dialect coaches, and they really nailed it.
It's easy for us. We write the lines in English, and then the actors have to take this language, and they have to not only speak it well and make it intelligible, but also they have to act. I mean, they have to emote in a language they don't really understand.
That's the challenge. You're speaking this made-up language. You've got to walk and talk, ride a horse with one hand, you know, fight somebody, punch somebody at a certain point, remember all the continuity, and speak a language that is completely new to you and completely alien.
It's a nightmare. When you come across it in the script and you say, I'm speaking Dothraki, you just, no, please no. Please no.
If it weren't for a little magic fairy who goes by the name of Jan Hayden-Rowles, we would all be ruined. We would all be screwed. The reality is that you have your line, the cat sat on the mat, and it would then be translated into words that are applicable to be translated into Dothraki. So the cat sat on the mat would turn into the non-dog would be sitteth by the near the on the sort of by the door-ish kind of thing. And then that would be translated into Dothraki, and then you'd learn that.
Amelia listens to it rhythmically, so she listens to the MP3 files, and then we'll clap it.
I've now got little sneaky little tricks that really help me. Like I make it into a song. Ah, yeah.
Sometimes we beatbox it. We like, and I'll be beatboxing and she'll be singing along like a rude girl.
Like if you get like the right rhythm or something, then it stays in your mind and you like remember the rhythm.
أنا داينيريس جافاسكو هي على تاغاريان أتاك محاكسون مايو سافيرساك خاليسي ميرني خاليسي مندعلي من رويناري ماتاكي خاليسي مارافوشي جافورشي فيا فاراك.
Everything that I say is in Dothraki, so I am completely subtitled, which is cool, you know, it's been a great experience. I mean, the last sort of couple of scenes we shot on the temple, there's like 5 or 6 pages of Dothraki dialogue. It was definitely one of the most challenging things I've ever done.
There's something about it that just makes the whole world seem more believable. You know, it's a weird thing to say, verisimilitude, when you're talking about a made-up language in a made-up world where dragons exist and magic and so forth, but you know, for us, we're never trying to be tongue-in-cheek. We're always trying to present a world that's completely real. It's not our world, but it's a real world. And the Dothraki is just one element that adds to that illusion.
I think Dany is one of the most fascinating characters because the audience never knows what to expect from her storyline. In this season, she becomes the true warrior queen, ready to take on the world.
Watching the way she has come into her own with all the mistakes that she's made and all the impulsive decisions that have come with it, feels like she has earned it.
She's messed up a lot. Stuff's gone wrong. Ultimately, the theme is a lack of trust within herself. And it takes her to be stripped of all of her advisors, stripped of her dragons even, stripped of everything that makes her who she has become, to realize that she doesn't need any of it. She's got herself. This is where the fuck motherfuckers up comes in.